What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916, getting down with fresh out. You know how we do it over here, man. Hit that subscribe, that like, share the channel. We got to hit that milli so we can do some big things for you guys. You know, we've been doing it for a minute, and hey, we trying to reach our goals with you guys. So, you know, we always are dropping the dopest interviews on YouTube, and I have with me here today a special guest, Pablo Agrio, author. This man has a story, man, it's gonna blow your mind, but I'm gonna let him tell it, and we're the first ones to really bring this out and let it be known. So, Pablo, can you tell our audience a little bit about your background, you know, where you're from, how you grew up?
Well, yeah. Thanks for having me, Marcus. And first of all, let me just say all praise and glory to my Father and Creator and to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm originally from Panama. I came here to the States when I was 17 years old to try to forge a better life for myself and my family. Shortly thereafter, I joined the Marine Corps. I did 7 years in the military. Once I left the military, I became a police officer. And while I was a police officer, I ended up committing a crime. And after that, I ended up spending about 30 years of my life in prison.
Damn, 30 years?
Yes, sir.
God, most of you guys haven't been alive 30 years, man. That's a long time, man. Can you expound on, you know, what your experience in the military was, like what branch you were in and what made you go into that branch of the military and what was entailed while you were in the military?
Yeah, as you can imagine, when I first came here, I came with the intention of going to college and furthering my education, or at least that was the story that was told to me. Mm-hmm. But once I got here, the harsh reality hit, and I discovered that going to college here isn't that easy. You know, you have to take the SATs and you have to have money. That then, you know, had to cause me to change plans and start to improvise. That improvisation didn't lead to good things. I ended up on the streets selling drugs, trying to survive. That's a story in and of itself. But in doing that, I ended up meeting a gentleman that was a Marine Corps recruiter. And it was through his advice and counsel that I decided to join the Marine Corps. That's how that came about. I really didn't have any idea or any intention of joining the military, but because he stepped up and tried to give me a hand, then the Marine Corps was my way out. When I joined, my MOS became the artillery, 0844. I did some time in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Okinawa, and then eventually came back to the States, to the West Coast. Artillery was really not the best job in the world, but it was something that I did while I was there. Eventually, I grew dissatisfied with the job, spending too much time in the field, not feeling like I was maximizing my potential. And as much as I tried to make the change from enlisted man to officer or try to get the MOS change, you know, all doors were closed. So that led to the decision then to leave, and I did.
So upon leaving the military, what were your options? Did you have any post-military plans, maybe going back to college? I know they have a college, you know, program. You can get, you know, a scholarship, or did the going into the law enforcement seem like the most logical at that time?
Yeah, I had done some college. You know, prior to leaving the Marine Corps, I had an opportunity to apply for and was selected for a program called Boost, which was a program that was ran by the Navy that gave minorities an opportunity to raise their SAT scores and compete for scholarships. And I was absolutely sure that I was going to get selected for that program. I was the #1 guy in the class. However, I couldn't, for some reason, get the SAT scores to a level that was competitive enough with the rest of the fleet. So even though I spent almost a year and a half in that program, at the end of the day, I didn't get one of the scholarships and was sent back to the Fleet Marine Corps, and probably that was what precipitated my downfall. And you know, because when I went back, I was a sergeant and was expected to know the job inside and out of what an artilleryman was all about. And I had been out of the position for so long that I was totally clueless. And unfortunately for me, I ran into a commanding officer that wasn't really accepting that. So things started to spiral out of control. Now, because I had started the educational process, then I felt like, why not continue? Maybe even if I didn't get the scholarship, then I could still finish college on my own and try to parlay that into a commission. But because the commanding officer that I had wasn't really supportive of that, any bad marks that he would give me on my fitness report was going to end my career anyway. So kind of seeing the writing on the wall, so to speak, I started to look for options. And it was right about that time that a friend of mine, I'd known her for a long time, and when I met her, she was doing security at one of the department stores in the San Diego area. And she had left that job and became a police officer. And then I met her subsequent to that at a nightclub that we both frequented. And when I explained to her that I was dissatisfied with my military career and was thinking about leaving, then she said to me, listen, the police department is looking for minorities with some college education. This would be a perfect fit for you. All you got to do is apply. They'll do a background investigation. If you pass, you're in. And I said, you know, let me think about that and see, you know, because like the Marine Corps, you know, becoming a police officer wasn't one of those things that I really grew up thinking about or really even thought about getting involved in. In fact, until she mentioned it to me, that was the furthest thing from my mind. But the truth of the matter is that I didn't have any skills. You know, artillery, be real. How was I going to translate that into the civilian world? And what else did I have? And, you know, a standard of living that I wanted to live, you need money for that. So I thought about it and I said, why not? What the heck? I don't really know much about this job either, but I didn't know anything about being a military man when I first started, and it turned out that it was a good career for me until this point when, you know, I wasn't able to further my goals the way I wanted to. And so I applied, and sure enough, background pass check. And then I said, okay. They offered me the job, and I said, sure, why not?
Wow. So you had the opportunity, it presented itself, you leave the military, you're in San Diego, and so you join the police force in San Diego. What was that experience like, and how did getting involved with the San Diego Police Department lead to you going down a different path?
Yeah. Let me preface answering that question by saying this. There were a lot of things that were happening to me on a personal level, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually during this time. And I'm talking about my early 20s. And I think when I left the Marine Corps, I left with some really serious emotional issues that I was not aware of. Today they call that PTSD. And I didn't know that I had PTSD until I left prison and I was diagnosed at the VA. So let's just start with setting the table with that. Now, I got PTSD, I leave the Marine Corps, and I go join the police department. Now, here's the thing. The police departments across the nation, they love to have military personnel in their ranks because they're dependable, reliable, they follow orders, you know, they're disciplined, you know, they understand chain of command. So the transition wasn't really that difficult, but the job itself was one that took some getting used to. First of all, you have to buy in to the philosophy and the mission of what police officers do. And I wasn't too sure that I was sold on that. I had problems adjusting to being a patrol officer, to stopping people, to doing the things that police officers do. So initially, it was difficult for me to adjust. But with everything, in time, I started to learn the job and become more comfortable. However, understanding how I really felt about the job itself, I started looking for opportunities to get out of patrol as soon as possible. And so I completed my probationary period after 1 year. I did some other patrol duties in the interim, but as soon as the 3rd year came up and then I was eligible for special assignments, I immediately started to look to see what I could do. And eventually I landed a position as a school officer, working with elementary school kids or junior high school kids and what have you. And so that was the transition that I took, and I got myself out of patrol. I was doing that sort of job when tragedy entered my life, and it just turned my entire world upside down.
Man, yeah, I mean, I was always curious about that because, you know, I know, you know, typically what they call it, working the beat, when you have to go out on patrol and do your stuff, and you know, I just see it on TV. I mean, I know people who have worked in law enforcement, and then, you know, as a rookie, then you eventually, you know, some people try to work their way up to detective, and then get into, like you said, special assignments and different things like that. So I know it's a process, and you know, having, even in the police force, the right mentor to kind of give you the ins and outs makes a big difference, you know, and younger officers knowing what the protocol is. As you said, you got into being a police at the school, and, you know, things kind of went south. What happened at that point? I mean, did that seem as a logical course at the time, and then something happened that kind of changed that, or?
Yeah. Well, I talked about the mental and emotional issues and the, you know, some of the trauma that I was dealing with that was undiagnosed, and of course, I didn't want to believe that I had issues. You know, I thought I was okay. I come from a background that said, "Man, don't complain. You suck it up. You deal with it, whatever." And you know, I thought to myself, somehow or another, I have to make this work. And I got a plan for the future, and you know, make a career out of this thing. And so when as I started working in the schools and what have you, I felt like, listen, man, this job itself is causing you more issues because you feel isolated. One of the things that I discovered when I joined the Marine Corps and coming to this country was the entire dynamics of race. You know, coming from Panama, you know, we are a very inclusive country. We don't really look at racial divisions as such, you know. And one of the first things that I remember experiencing in the Marine Corps was how segregated everything was. And I had a tough time trying to figure out where I belong. You know, now being multicultural, I found myself, I could hang out with white people, white guys, and that was cool. I could hang out with brothers, and that was cool. I could also hang out with the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, whomever. Wherever I went, I was okay. But I always felt like the lone guy, you know, the guy was, you know, the fish out of water, because I was the only guy that was there from Panama. Mm-hmm. Everybody else had 4, 5, 6, or whatever many deep they ran. Mm-hmm. Well, lo and behold, it's the same thing in law enforcement. Law enforcement have, you know, groups, organizations, community support, whatever, for white officers, for the same for black officers, the same for Mexican officers. Mm-hmm. Where does Pablo fit in?
Yeah.
Pablo doesn't fit in anyway. And this didn't become evident to me until I got myself in trouble and I went looking for help, and I realized that there's no organization to help me. You know, if I go to the Mexicans, they say, "You're not Mexican, we don't have any help for you." Mm-hmm. If I go to the blacks, they say, "Well, you know, our resources are for the people that, you know, we support." The whites, they don't want to hear anything about that either. And so it is dealing with these particular issues that then I started to see and feel and sense the reality that I was living in. That not only was I isolated from a community source, a community support, a community base, but I was basically working a job that I didn't really understand, didn't really care about, and didn't really feel like I belonged. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that together with some of the other issues that I was having, they were really wearing me out and having an impact on me. But I refused to ask for help. I didn't want to tell anybody that I was having issues like that. I just thought that, look, whatever it is, you're going to figure it out.
No, I mean, I could totally relate to what you're talking about because, you know, I'm black. Of course, it's obvious, but with the way I think and some of my philosophies and principles, I felt like I never fit in. So, you know, going over here to hang out with certain people, but I don't smoke weed, I don't drink. I'm into cars and art and certain travel things, and it's kind of different than most things culturally. And then over here, I can go talk to the white guys, but I'm not white, but I can talk business. I can talk about stock market. I could talk about, I'm into certain movies, Wall Street, certain things that are more quote unquote white, BMX and skateboarding. So I never really fit in either. And so the only people I kind of fit in was a kind of a hodgepodge of different cultures, but I always felt like I was pretty much by myself. I only had maybe one or two black friends I could talk intimately with who wouldn't be offended or take offense because I didn't go along with certain narratives. So I was always like that guy kind of by himself trying to find my way, and I always had an eclectic mix of friends. Korean, Belizean, Native American. I always had a mixture of friends that weren't necessarily all like black, So I can totally relate, man. And trying to figure life out where you fit in is always, that's the question that plagues many people, because you can look one way, but it doesn't mean you fit in. And even if you're around people that look like you, it doesn't mean you guys are all on the same page. So,
yeah, and that became evident to me at my trial. You know what I'm saying? That's when I really realized. And some of the things that I'm sharing with you are things that, of course, weren't evident to me when I was going through it. But when I was in prison, man, when I was in my cell, when I was walking the yard all those decades, and I was really taking a look at myself, at my life, just at the picture, the visions, the images. How did you end up in this place, man?
Yeah.
How did you come from Panama all the way to the United States to end up in a prison penitentiary? Is this the end of you? Was this what was intended for you in your life? And then you start looking at things and you say, well, what about my associations? What about people that I thought were my friends?
Yeah.
Where are they now?
Yeah.
How come nobody's writing? Nobody's visiting? Nobody gives a damn about my mom, about my son? Nothing. It's like I'm dead. And you say, well, these people broke bread with me. Look, let me tell you something, Marcus. When I was a police officer, you was my partner, I would take a bullet for you. That's how I was conditioned. That's how I was wired.
Yeah.
You're my partner, man. You're my colleague. I will go to war with you. I'll lie for you. I'll do whatever. And then I'm in trouble and you don't have any time for me? You don't even come around to see, hey, do you need help to get a lawyer? What can I do about your son, man? Can I help you? No, man. That's when reality hits you. Man, you didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
Nobody here gave a damn about you. You know what I'm saying? They acted like they did. They said all the right things in front of you. But then when the chips were really down, you realize, hey, you're on your own, man. You'll either sink or you'll float, but this is going to be on you, nobody else.
Yeah.
That's when Marcus, that's when you discover that there is a God, man, and that all you have is your faith, nothing else.
Can you go into detail about the incident that led to you getting the 30 years?
Yeah, I'll talk about it. I don't know that I want to go into
you don't have to
details
go
about
into
it because
detail,
that thing is traumatic,
yeah.
brother. I'm telling you, anytime I go into that is something that emotionally it just wears me out. And I'm telling you, man, for 20 years I sat in rooms with Board of Parole members, commissioners that grilled me about that, man. And that's another trauma that I have it just triggers me. But I'll tell you this, man. Once I started my my career with the police department, one of the first assignments that I had was working as a foot patrol officer in the downtown area. At the time, they were trying to clean up the area, get the drug addicts and the prostitutes out of the area because they were trying to renovate the downtown area. They were building up some projects and what have you. And so I was doing that kind of work. Of course, you know, even police officers have to eat. So I used to go to this particular restaurant to get my meals, my lunch. And this young lady that was managing the place apparently had started paying attention to me. I don't know if it was because I was a police officer or because she really had some kind of attraction to me. Now, I didn't know. I was clueless. But working with a female officer as a partner one day, my partner then brought to my attention that the young lady was interested. Shortly after that, she invited me to a party that they were having, her family, I think. They was having some kind of sweet 16 party for her sister. I accepted the invitation, and mind you now, this is our first date. I went to the party, and when I got there, I noticed that outside the building, the place where the party was taking place, there was a lot of, you know, Mexican kids in lowriders. You know, this may not be the best characterization, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, but, you know, if you think about the term cholos, you would probably get a good vision of what the kind of element that was there. Now, I'm off duty. I got my detective special with me, and I'm driving a BMW. I pull up, and I see what's going on, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, I hope I don't run into anybody here that I, you know, had issues with while I was on patrol, because, you know, I don't have a radio, I don't have a baton, I don't have any way to communicate with anybody. And the last thing that I want to do, Marcus, is to have to pull out my detective special and threaten somebody, or lo and behold, have to even shoot somebody. You know, there's going to be a lot of explanation to be done. Nevertheless, I stop and I think to myself, maybe you are, you know, exaggerating. Maybe you're paranoid. You're thinking about things that are not even, you know, possible at this time. Whatever I needed to do to convince myself. I got out and I went into the place and I asked for the young lady. When she came to me, Marcus, she was unrecognizable. Not the same person that was at the restaurant, you know, managing the restaurant and bringing me my meals. She was intoxicated and in really bad shape. You know, to the point where I can tell you that had I met her on the streets as a police officer, I would probably have, you know, arrested her, or maybe even, you know, if she was driving, of course, or that kind of thing. Based on my professional opinion at that time, this person was in bad shape. So I took a look at the situation and I said to myself, man, this isn't my cup of tea. I need to get the hell out of here. So she asked me if I wanted to dance. I said, nah, I'm cool. She asked me if I wanted something to drink. I said, no, I'm cool, I'm driving. And so somebody came up and asked her to dance, and she left. And I said, you know what? You don't know anybody here. You don't know what's going on. You better get the hell out of here and go home and get some rest. I had worked the afternoon shift that day, got off at about 10:30, 11. And so it was past midnight by that time. And I had to work the next day. So I left. But before I left, I went to her and said my goodbyes. She asked me for my hookup. I gave it to her. And I went home. Forgot about the incident. I'm dead asleep about 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little later than that. My phone rings. It's her. She says she's in my apartment, my condominium complex. She's looking for my unit and she can't find it. And I'm like, whoa, what's up with that? So I said, okay, listen, this is how you get to my unit. Sure enough, a few minutes later, the doorbell rings. I open it up. I look at her. She's still in a bad state. Now, let me tell you something, Marcus. At that point in time, there are several things I could have done. Number one, take her home. Number two, call a cab for her. Number three, have her get on the couch and sleep. She wants to go to my bed, have her sleep in the bed. I'm going to sleep on the couch. I didn't do any of those things, Marcus. This young lady walked into my apartment. My mom is in the next bedroom sleeping. She goes into my bedroom, takes her clothes off, and jumps in my bed. What do I do? Man, I've been lonely. I ain't had a date in a long time. I'm working a job I'm scared to even ask people to go out with. I don't want them to know what I'm doing. I don't know how they're going to react to that. So, first bad decision. I get in bed. And you know what happened next. She wakes up the next morning. She leaves. I'm thinking, well, that was it. Hopefully everything is cool. It dies out. There's no issues. Absolutely not. Next day, she's back at my place. And so is how the relationship started. Marcus, I'll jump forward and I'll tell you that not long after that, she declares that she's pregnant. Okay, so just picture that, Marcus. Is this, I'm just going to ask a rhetorical question. Do you think that was the best way to start a relationship with someone that you think could last and be fulfilling? I'm going to say to you right now, nah. No. I wouldn't advise anybody to get involved in a relationship, especially with a child, with someone that you met under those conditions, and this is how things started. But that's the predicament that I found myself in. Now, when those who were close to me at the time got wind of what was going on, I'm going to tell you right now, honestly, there wasn't anyone who I knew, whether friend or foe, who thought that what I was doing was something that I should pursue. On the contrary, everybody told me, Pablo, you need to get out of this relationship. You need to put an end to this. You're a good guy. You have a bright future. You got things going on. Think, man, what are you doing? You know, would I listen? Did I listen? Well, I'm here to tell you the story, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the power of the package, man. It's no joke, man. I know, like you said, I tell people all the time, man, you fall under the spell of a woman and you'll do things that you wouldn't have done otherwise. So, you know, I'm not here to judge you. I can't say that, you know, I could have been any better because, like you said, a naked woman in the bed is very tempting. And I mean, I've seen situations and it's like you got to make a choice, and that choice can change your life, man. So sure. I'm not going to point the finger at you any more than I point at myself, you know. So, I mean, you know, dealing with, especially when you start talking about somebody's pregnant now and it's not somebody you would look at wife material, that takes you down a whole nother path, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, you know, the way that thing develops, man, I mean, I don't know. You're going to say, well, you already made a bad decision. Now, how do you fix that? Well, if you have good tools, good skills, maybe you can figure out a way to get out of that situation and cause no harm to anyone. But when you don't have those tools, when you don't have any role models in your life, when you don't have any mentors or people that you can talk to, that you can trust, that will give you some positive guidance, and you're trying to deal with this on your own, listen, man, when you have the only tool that you have in your toolbox is a hammer, that's what you're going to use to try to fix things. Initially, I thought maybe if she had an abortion, we can prevent or minimize the damage. But I had been down that path a couple of times before. All that is documented in my book. And I had reached a point in my life when I was tired of that. And I was thinking to myself, you know, you're a man that grew up without a father. You come from a single parent home. You know what that feels like. And this is a vicious cycle. This young lady grew up without a father. I mean, maybe you can make this work. And so I said to myself, maybe we can come together and make something good of this. And in spite of all the naysayers, if we trust each other and we decide to work together, we can make it happen. Now, whatever her issues were with drinking, those were issues that she didn't think that were a problem for her and that she needed to address. She always maintained that she was a social drinker and that was it. And that everybody drank and it was cool, that I needed not be concerned about that. And eventually she came to prove that she could manage it, because while she was pregnant, she never touched alcohol. And she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. And I'm happy to say today that he's a successful young man. Not thanks to me or anything like that, but you know, whoever he had in his life, whoever picked up the pieces, man, they did a terrific job. So let me just give them kudos for that. But so I trusted her. I said, okay, let's see what we can do with this. The baby boy came, and of course, I'm a man. Here's my son. I'm proud, man. You know, that changes me emotionally. Whatever doubts, whatever concerns I had about this relationship, now I'm thinking, Marcus, now there's my boy, man. You know, I need to put aside doubts, and I need to say, what can we do to make sure that this kid, this boy, this child that we brought into this world, man, doesn't suffer the same consequences, same conditions that we had to experience growing up without a father and without, you know, both parents in his home, in his life. And so my mindset switched to being standoffish, to having barriers, to saying, you're full in now. You're committed. This is what you're going to do. Now, notice that up to this point, Marcus, I haven't mentioned anything about any incidents of abuse or either verbal or physical, right? I'm a man trying to manage my life, man, trying to create a future for myself. I'm still going to college. I got my college degree. I'm thinking about going to law school. I'm enrolled in law school. I'm doing things, Marcus. I'm trying to work on a future, man. But I'm also trying to manage what's going on in my personal life. Now, after the birth of the child, the question comes up about marriage. You know, I buy a home. We're thinking about moving in together. We are living together. So it just seems like the natural progression of things. When the marriage thing comes up, I'm like, man, now this is really a serious step now. This is not living together anymore and being co-parents of a child. This is now saying, we're going to put it on paper. We're going to make this thing legal, and this is going to be a forever ride. And so I say, all right, let's do this. Now, again, major resistance from people who knew me. You know, they're saying, man, are you sure this is what you want to do? Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe you ought to think about this thing twice before you go making that kind of commitment. I say, you know what? You guys just don't know, man. We got this. You know, I'm okay with it. If you guys are not okay with it, then to hell with you. Now, how would I know that what they were saying to me was something that I needed to pay attention to? You know, you could see where I would have doubts and maybe even question their motives. You know, and the rationale was something like this. I'm happy and you're jealous. You don't want me to be happy. You know what I'm saying? So you're looking for reasons why this relationship is not going to work, or it's toxic, or maybe you should get out of it. So I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to do what I think is best for me, what my gut feeling tells me to do. And the day of the marriage, Marcus, I witnessed the same pattern of behavior that resurfaces all over again. In spite of my pleas to her that she'd take it easy on the consumption of alcohol, she goes full board. And there's kind of like a switch that takes place at this reception now. And the switch is like, while before there was an attempt on her part to listen to me or even pay attention to me or pretend like she was paying attention to what I was saying, now with the wedding band on her finger, it was like, nah, I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if you want to be mad. I'm going to do me. And I was like, whoa, what's happening here? Well, on the way to our honeymoon to the Bahamas, man, the whole behavior, the whole dynamics of the relationship completely changed. And her attitude was like, I don't care what you say. I don't care how you feel. I don't care what you think. I'm just going to do what I got to do. When we came back from our honeymoon, you would have thought, Marcus, that this was the beginning of happy times. Okay? We did it. We married. We're going to make this thing work. Instead, I found myself thinking to myself, wow, what happened here? Were you suckered? Where is this relationship? There is no relationship. This is like two strangers living under the same roof, both going about their business on their own. There's no communication. There's no dialogue. There's no attempt to work together. Nothing. We're roommates. This is immediately after a marriage, right? And so what did I do? Of course, now I don't want to tell anybody what's going on in my life. How can I? What am I going to say to people? You were right and I was wrong. And man, I've been had. No, man, I didn't have the guts to say that. So I tried to ignore it. That was the way that I thought that I could work with this. Ignore it. Mm. And so I did what I thought was the best way to cope with this. Go out, have affairs, womanize, focus on my law school. Anything but try to deal with what's going on under my roof. So eventually, as things happens in these situations, it all had to come to a head. And, there was a turning point there in the turmoil that I'm describing when she decided that she was going to become a citizen and then apply for a position with the sheriff department. I was initially opposed to that. I thought, one person in law enforcement is already bad enough. Excuse me. So now you want to have two of us. And we have a young baby that we have to worry about. But her mind was made up. And when she asked me for my help to try to get the citizenship stuff done and so that she could proceed with this application, communication between us started to improve. It was like we were working together towards a common goal. And I felt good about that. I felt like now I'm included back in her life, and maybe this could be the beginning of salvaging what seems up to this point as being in tatters. And so we did that. She got her citizenship, she applied for the sheriff's department thing, and she got accepted. But that was just my perception. She's not here to testify about what was going on in her mind or how she was thinking about things or how she was feeling about the relationship. Whatever it is that was going on in my mind, that was on my own creation. One thing I know is that I felt like the job itself was creating a bigger wedge between us, because now she had that excuse that she was busy and the demands, and I should know, I should understand because I'm in the same line of duty and what have you. So I said, okay, let me see how this thing is going to play out. But let me just back up for a second and say this, because this is relevant to how this is going to end up now. During this time, an old Marine Corps buddy of mine that was living in the Santa Ana area came down to San Diego to visit with me. And we were going to go out and have a boys' night. Now, this is my boy and I used to hang out when we were in the Corps, and we used to do our thing. And stories was out there, a lot of conversations. And so she knew that when we got together, we were a handful. But I was past that, Marcus. We were just going to go out and just kind of catch up on old times. Anyway, when he came down and we made the decision to go out, basically I made the decision that we were going to go out and just have a boys out in town. My wife decided that she wanted to go hang out with us. And I was like, nah. It's not going to be the same. Why don't you stay home, chill with the baby. We're going to just go out for a couple hours and then we're going to come back. And then tomorrow, we can all get together and just go out and breakfast and do something, you know what I'm saying? But she made a big stink about that. Huge, enormous. And first of all, she grabbed the keys for the BMW. She didn't want me to have the keys. And she was making a scene with my friend there. And I didn't know how to handle that. So what I did is I kind of wrestled with her to get control of the keys again so that I could leave. And I did. And in the process, when I got control of the keys, she fell to the ground. Now, I didn't push her. I didn't do anything to her except try to get the keys out, and she stumbled and fell. And we left. Now, when we left, we didn't go night clubbing or anything like that because the whole ambience, the environment, the whole thing was already leaving a bad taste in our mouth. So what we did is we went to a park and we parked the car there. And then my friend asked me, he says, man, what the hell is going on with you, man? Where are you with this relationship, man? What kind of life are you guys living? I thought you were happily married. I think everything was going cool. And so I took time then to bring him up to speed on what was going on. And we talked for hours, man. Marcus, when I went back to the house, when I opened the door, there's a little note there that I recognized right away. It's one of those neat little notes that come out of our little police department notebooks. and I look at it and I'm like, whoa, the hell is that? And I read it and it says, police was here. I'm paraphrasing. You need to, come down to the station and talk to one of us about a report that your wife filed against you. I'm like, what the hell is that all about? So she's mad. I don't say anything to her. But sure enough, internal affairs gets involved. And bottom line is, they're investigating me for domestic violence. Now, back in those days, it's not like it is today that domestic violence has its own separate penal code section now. Back in those days, you used to deal with domestic violence like, I get to your place, we separate the man and the woman, usually tell the man to take a walk or whatever. It was kind of like take a hands-off approach. Now, but I'm a high-profile guy because I'm doing work now for the department that's got me in the public eye. So I have to go in there and answer questions about what happened. And so they decided that to cover their asses, I needed to go to therapy and marriage counseling and all this other stuff, and that if I satisfied these requirements, that they were not going to, make a DA's referral. So I did that, and so we come back now to the present time now where I left off with the story. But understand now that there's a police report that said that I was abusive to her. Now, totally unfounded. And when they try to press the issue with her, and I explained to her, because I did that, I explained to her, look, you talk to these people about this and you continue with this madness, this is what you're going to succeed in doing. I'm going to get fired. Okay? I'm going to get fired, and we just bought this condominium. You see the standard of living that we have here right now? You're going to lose that. It's going to be your salary. Maybe I won't even have a job. So this is what you started here. I don't know what your intentions were, but you know that what you're saying that I did wasn't true. And you know exactly what happened. So you have to make a decision now as to whether or not you're going to continue down this path and then ruin my career and ruin your life. So she backed off. Did she do the right thing, Marcus? I don't know. But obviously she made the decision and she said, look, okay, I won't go to the appointments. I won't answer any more calls. I'm just going to tell them that we figured it out. We worked it out and that's okay. Look, some people here in the store may argue that if she'd proceeded with that, she'd still be alive today. And who am I to say that they're wrong? You know, maybe that would have ended up in a divorce. Maybe the relationship would have shattered and she would have gone her way and I would have gone my way and we would have both figured it out later and she would have still been here to do whatever it is that she was going to do in her life.
Stop walking around with a crusty butt, smelly ball sack, and a funky hoo-ha. Big Herc said, wash that ass. Pick you up a t-shirt at freshoutseries.com.